we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. My name is Alex Duggan, and on behalf of Starboard Consulting, I want to welcome you to today's coffee chat. Just a few quick notes. All audience members are in listen-only mode, but we welcome and encourage any questions you have. Please enter them in the chat window. We will have a little time for Q&A at the end, so please, we'd love to hear from you. After the event, yes, we will send you a copy of today's presentation as well as the link to the replay video. We know there are a lot of questions about Maximo 8, which is why we are so pleased to be kicking off our new Maximo 8 Coffee Chat series. This is the first of 3 coffee chats where we'll be talking about everything you need to know about Maximo 8. Leading today's discussion is Amy Tatum, Vice President and Technical Director of Starboard Consulting. Amy has over 25 years of experience as an engineer and a technology consultant and has managed countless Maximo projects, you name it, she has done it. Amy, if you've joined us for Coffee Chat before, has also been our featured host and presenter for this series. Amy, good afternoon. Thank you so much for leading us today.
Good afternoon, Alex. Thank you. We appreciate it. My name's Amy Tatum, and as Alex said, I'm a Vice President and Technical Director with Starboard, and I've been around the Maximo ecosystem for a long time now, starting out in version 3.02. Starboard's been working with Maximo for about 14 years and has done a lot of implementations, upgrades, integrations. Pretty much if it involves Maximo, we can do it or have done it. One of the things I love about being a consultant is that every day is like a new job, new people, new projects, new challenges, and now new versions of Maximo. So excited to be learning something new again and exploring this latest release. So this is as Alex said, our next series of webinars and coffee chats. We're going to talk about Maximo 8. So today we're just going to do a general overview of what exactly Maximo 8 is, what's included, what's not included, kind of how that all pieces together. Then we'll get back together in early May to talk about licensing. That's a big question as well, so we'll spend some time looking at that. And then in June 8th, we'll take a little deeper technical dive into some of the architecture and infrastructure behind Maximo 8. So super excited to be sharing that with everybody. Hope that you all learned something today. And as Alex said, if you've got any questions at all, just post those into the chat window and we'll get to those as best we can at the end of the session today. So excited to have with us today Kim Woodbury. Kim is a product offering manager with IBM, has been around the Maximo product line for a long time as well. So Kim, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate your support and the information that you've got to share with us.
Great to be here. Thanks, Amy.
So before we get started, I know you've been around Maximo a long time, but Alex, let's see what our familiarity is with folks on the line with Maximo 8. How many people have already seen some webinars or other information? I think you've got a poll queued up for us, right?
We do. Thanks, Amy. So in your chat box or your chat window, depending what browser you're using, we would just love to hear from you if you have attended or if this is your first webinar on Maximo 8. Just sort of love to know where you're coming from right now. Looks like a few people have attended a previous webinar, but about 70%, this is our first time chatting about it. Great. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. All right, so Kim, let's jump in and talk about Maximo 8. We hear a lot about the journey, and we all like to travel and go on journeys. So tell us about the Maximo 8 journey.
Great. So let me take you through sort of what we were hoping to achieve by offering the Maximo Application Suite, which is what version 8 is called. We had been releasing some complementary adjacent applications and products within the portfolio over the last couple of years. I think the one that most people are familiar with is the Asset Health Insights, MAHI, or what you'll see here is Health. And we really wanted to simplify and enable our customers to be able to use all of these different applications under a simplified licensing, simplified deployment, all within the same user experience, right? All within the same suite. So starting with I guess one last thing on that simplification, you also see the naming has kind of been simplified. So instead of asset health insights, we're just talking about these one-word applications health. And you'll see that the rebranding as we move EAM into the suite will be manage. So starting with the applications that everyone uses today, to have a single source of truth asset repository, understanding all that is associated with maintaining those assets, from the supply chain pieces, spare parts, job plans, PMs, etc., all still within that Maximo kind of foundation around the maintenance. Some of these other applications, though, as we look to provide some additional capabilities, Monitor allows you to take that near real-time data from multiple systems and apply some AI anomaly detection logic that will help identify when there are problems with the assets in that portfolio. So we've been talking about IoT for a long time. We talk about sensors and how important it is to really understand the operational state of your asset. So this application allows you to bring all of that data together and do more of a multi-point condition monitoring, if you will. So it's not just a single point of data that is out of its range that could indicate you need to do some work or go out and do an inspection. It's multiple points. It's not just that the temperature has risen, but also that the vibration is high, right? That now I've got some clear indication. I can get rid of the false positives and all these alerts that are going off and tie that back into how I maintain that asset. There's some additional capabilities with visual inspection. So we talk about, again, bringing in AI to help us understand the state of our assets. And as we talk about with our customers about their remote assets, their complex assets, and being able to use things like imagery to train models that can identify when something is in poor health or good health. Again, tying that back in, now I know that there's some work that I need to perform. I can generate that work order or service request in Maximo to respond to that condition. And then moving along the journey, I really want to start understanding more about my entire fleet of assets. I want to learn across the portfolio what the health of all these assets are by setting up scoring methodologies that can bring in information from my work history, from my monitoring, from my inspections, from the OEM about the expected life of that asset, and set some scoring rules so that now I've got a real information about, this is the comparative health of these assets to each other and where I might want to use my budget in the future. That, of course, leads to doing predictions. So now that I can understand the failure history and the state of those assets, the operational condition, I can now move into predicting when a future failure might occur. And we know that, these things are places that we want to get with, different parts of our portfolio, certain types of assets, high value, high importance assets, critical assets within the organization to get to that prediction model. It's all supported, of course, with mobile. We talk a lot about our investment in modernization and enabling our technicians with mobile capabilities, also infused with AI for assistance, searching for documentation, reaching out for collaboration sessions, using augmented reality. So lots of technology also infused across the entire process.
Sure. And with the Monitor, that's our opportunity to tie in with, SCADA systems, building automation, a lot of, like you said, the IoT sensors, but some of the more traditional monitoring devices that may be out in older plants and facilities and things like that as well, right?
Yeah, and it's and it is adding sort of some additional logic that will help take that data and get some more meaningful insights out of it.
Right. Okay. Well, that's great. I mean, it's a good journey. It's something that a lot of our clients have talked about and wanted to do for a long, long time. So it's nice to see an actual path, a roadmap to follow, and not be trying to piece things together, one product at a time. like that. So
yeah, and so as part of this being part of the suite, right? Some of these benefits of having all of these applications available, but us, IBM focusing on the integration between those tools, the processes that connect all of these things, the experience from the end user's perspective, being able to have that similar look and feel as we move towards new design patterns. All of that is important to support this suite notion.
Yeah, we've noticed in the demos and the preview site that we're using now, just even having that single landing page to kind of go to and launch to these other things is nice, because you don't feel so much like you're in different products all the time, having that common look and feel across them. So let's talk a little bit about the suite. So it is the Maximo Application Suite, which is obviously much more than Maximo. As you noted, Maximo is rebranded as Manage in this suite. So let's talk about some of the other products that are in here.
Yeah, so I kind of went through some of them, and I guess I will talk about the release cycle too, as we continue to add things to the suite. This is the version that's coming out in next month is 8.4 of the application suite, and we'll have the first instance of Manage, or what was known as the Maximo EAM, as 8.0 within the suite. And we are planning quarterly releases of the application suite, which may or may not include updates to the various components or other applications within it. So you may have updates to visual inspection and safety, and those might be on an 8.2 or 8.3. So the numbering is independent. And there will be a matrix of compatibility that's managed by the OpenShift deployment engine. So, it will understand what pieces are compatible, and when you want to move up to the next version of Manage, knowing what other pieces you need to have. So we talked about Monitor, Health, Predict, and Visual Inspection. Assist is some of the mobile application capabilities that will add the ability to search your digitized documentation in a very, I say, Google-like way, natural language. You can pass information from your work order, but it will take you right to the document that's related, and even within the document, take you to the passage that's related to the question that you have. And then there's also some collaborative where you can reach out and engage in a session with an expert and share images and do markups to get some additional information. Safety is also another IoT example where we're monitoring safety of the person in the field, of the technician, using sensors on their body, so wearables, understanding if they've fallen, if they're in a high temperature situation, or their heart rate is accelerated, maybe there's carbon monoxide problems. So all of those things can then be fed back into some safety officers and be alerted to be able to assist that person. And then we have the APM for E&U, which is it's part of Health really and Predict, but it starts to talk about how we're going to have industry content views and start to provide additional templates, I'll say, and sets of data to support different industry capabilities.
Okay. So, Manage 8.0 is Maximo, and as you said, I think that's due out next month, right? So it's not part of the suite yet, but it's coming very, very soon. A lot of our client base anyway just uses Maximo today. They're not necessarily reaching into these other technologies yet, but they'll have that capability going forward. Do they have to go down that path? Is it optional? Where do you see that playing out?
And that is another great feature of the suite itself, is that you don't have to you only need to use the components that you choose, that you elect to. And the intent is that you would start, maybe you start with just Manage and you do your upgrade. And I'm kind of keeping an eye on the chat too. So you would upgrade from 7612 would be the jumping off point to get to 8 to manage. And then if you wanted to expand into some of the other areas, it's an easy enough deployment to add those capabilities. So when you do your first set of install, you could install, and when I say manage, that's of course includes lots of industry solutions and other options, whether you want spatial and scheduling and oil and gas and some combination thereof that you might be using today. So once you get that footprint, through that same part number and through the same licensing metric, you can then expand into some of the other areas, and even decide to maybe do a quick POC, and just investigate and learn more about some of these other options more easily.
I like the POC idea. I like the fact that it's all there, so you don't have to necessarily buy a lot of new product and go down a heavily committed path to be able to kind of stick your toe in the water and see, maybe with a small class of assets or something like that, how some of these other things might play out. So that's a great feature, like you said. So you've been monitoring the chat. I think we've got a few questions that have come up. So let's pop over there and see what we've got and just kind of see if we can answer some of these. So there's one here, are the products cloud only or on-premises as well? And I know on that last slide we were just looking at down the bottom of the frame, there was Azure and AWS and IBM and a lot of things going on there. So what are we looking at for an install?
Yeah, it can be on-premise as well. So you could be in your own private cloud, we say, if that is an option, and you're not required to use IBM's cloud for any of those services. That's another typical question I get when it comes to maybe the predict modeling or some of predict or monitor, right? But those can also be fully installed on-prem within your own hardware. Yep.
Cool. And the skins, I saw it the other day. It's a little bit different. It's very modern. Bit different.
Yeah. So we are moving towards this new pattern library, and we will be updating the skin of 8.0. It is not going to be the same as 7612. And also to note, we will only be supporting the new skin in 8.0. So in the past, we had some, you could go back and use prior ones, and we are going to have a single consistent look and feel now. So a single skin that will still be configurable. You'll still have your app designer. You'll still be able to bring forward any, what do they say? Conditional UI, things like that. Any business logic that you've added would all still be applied to this new look and feel.
And all of the other configuration tools, so database configuration, the automation, scripting, escalation, all of that is still in there. So we won't lose any of that going forward in those upgrades.
Right.
Great. You mentioned earlier just the industry solutions and add-ons. So there's a question here specifically from Bob about HSE.
Yeah, so that's supported as well. And I don't want to get into licensing. That's sort of the next chat, but there's really 3 tiers, right? You've got limited, base, premium, and HSE would require a premium set of app points, just like the industry solutions, as well as service provider. But some of the options like scheduler and spatial and calibration now just become part of base, and those aren't additionally charged for. So there is some simplification there too. There's been some collapsing of that model, I'll say, that opens it up a bit. That's
great. I love that spatial is included. That's one of our favorite things to implement. So that'll be great. So the monitor component, you made a reference to condition monitoring, but I kind of think as monitor is like condition monitoring on steroids or something. I mean, because there's so much more going on there with the AI and not just did this one measurement pass a mark, but did this combination. So if I've been trending in a certain direction or to drive 2 or 3 markers that combined indicate a problem. You want to maybe talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so the example, we've got one that's, in our demo scenario is this multi-vector vibration analysis. So it's not just on the XY axis. So you want to look at your XYZ axis vibration and a combination of a threshold that then will trigger that condition to be an alert, right? A high alert. And so we do get that question, not only a comparison to, EAM condition monitoring to also what I get in my SCADA systems and OSIs, that there is a level of intelligence added here to do more complex anomaly detection. Yeah. Yeah, I should probably find, I think there's a recording of a demo for Monitor. It is one of the areas that I think there's a lot of interest in from customers as we talk about the suite there, where there's a lot of opportunities there to see some value quickly.
I know we do a lot of integrations to SCADA systems and building automation systems. A lot of our clients have a lot of visual inspections, leak surveys, transmission lines, all of that. So I can kind of see a lot of different data converging there. And really making that a useful tool. So upgrade path, I'm just kind of going down the chat. You're probably following it with me. So
so right now we're saying you've got to be on 7612 as the launching point to 8.0. That may change in the future. We may try to open it up and come from further down level versions. But right now that is that's the supported upgrade path to go to 8.0. And I think the other one that's like related is there another, what's the life of 7612? So we are planning on doing some additional fix packs, like when we've moved to other new versions in the past. All new features will be delivered in 8, but we're planning a 7613. So it'll be fixes and maybe some currency updates if we need to be on, recent, more current middleware and databases and things like that for late August, early September. And overall, 761, we are planning an end of support, end of life, I guess, in 2025. So that gives people I'm hoping a good amount of time to do some planning, and of course there'll be a +3 then too if they need extended support if they're not quite ready to move.
And if I remember correctly, 760 support ends in this September anyway. So folks ought to be getting to 7612 if you're not there yet. Hopefully you're in the progress or planning stages or something there. So if everybody gets up to a supported version by the end of this year, then that gets you into the right place to launch that into 8.
The other thing that makes me think of is that there are some cases where we've talked about having multiple deployments where you've got 761, you're doing your on-prem, but you've also then gone and got some licenses of the application suite for Monitor or for Assist or Health or some other, and you've made the connection and you do an integration to your current Maximo, but at least that allows you to get the software, start understanding some of the new technology and requirements for OpenShift, and then it's not such a drastic move, when you go to make the upgrade of the managed piece. Right.
Along the lines of that, training and available documentation online, is there much out there for Mass 8 yet?
Not yet, but we are working on some new courses, and we're definitely working on new release training that's going to be given to, internally and to our business partners. But as far as customer-facing training, we do rely on our partners a lot to provide that, and we are trying to, train the trainer. Yes. So we're trying to make sure that we get information out so that they can start building their courses as well. Yes. Initially, there's not a lot of functional change, right? No. The data, the data model has not changed, and as you mentioned, all the things like scripting and migration manager, automation scripts, all that. Still works the way that it does. So there's just a couple of pieces where your administration of users is at the suite level. So some changes to maybe your LDAP, some changes to integration using Kafka as a message queue is a change. But I think that it is more on the OpenShift side, and not necessarily, how do work orders work is still going to be the way work orders work.
They're still work orders. Exactly. So along those lines, there's a question here: how does the inspections of assets and finding on the same tie with the PM? So I mean, when I think of condition monitoring, I've got to tie there into PM. the inspections and things like that, does that tie in with my PMs as well?
So you can set up your inspections to be on a PM schedule. Is that the question, I think? So the new inspection forms are fully integrated into the other processes. So job plans, PMs, work orders, it shows on the asset history related records, things like that. I'm not sure. Let me see if I can find that question of asset and finding on the same tie with the PM.
Yeah, I was thinking more like inspection results and how maybe that ties in with PMs for follow-up work generation or something. If there's further questions on that one, just type them into the chat and we'll loop back around to that one. So,
okay, let's see. Oh, let me go up to the top. Workflow still using Java. Yes. Yeah, and I think one of the big things that we have on our roadmap for, I don't know if it's 8.5 or 8.6, which would be 8.1 or 8.2, is to move to Java 11. So that is coming. That would be later in 2021. And the expected release date is what are we in? Q2, so early May.
Early May.
We're still, yes, the announcement will go out at the end of April. And so that once the announcement goes out, then the date will be firm. There's a lot of moving parts as usual. So
all right. Analytics has been integrated more. Is that a true statement? I think that's probably more with the monitor and health and predict and all of that. There's a lot of analytics within those pieces, right?
Yeah, and we're looking at some new tools as well for analytics. So one of the questions, I guess it makes me think about, right now we don't have the Cognos licensing as part of the application suite.
Okay.
We're still working out with that team, sort of the revenue piece. So it's still BERT reporting, and we're working on a Cognos strategy. So I see the question again. So 2025 support for 7612. So September of 2025 is when we're planning the end of life of 761X.
Okay. I guess the good news with the BERT reporting, that means all the custom reports that you may have in your 7.6 environments will all pull forward. Yeah. I think there is a new version of BERT though, correct?
Not in this first release of MAS. So we are not up to 4.8 yet. Yes. We have been doing some testing of using the 4.8 designer and then running it in the 4.3 engine, and that seems to work fine. So I think that's what we're telling some of the customers. There's some issues with Oracle and with that older version of Java that people run into, and that's been the workaround we've been giving them until we can get everything up to 4.8. Okay. I see Julio's question too about the Kafka, and I'm not sure of that answer. So we'll have to get back to you on that one. Does it eliminate continuous queues? Yeah, I'm not sure.
And then the mandatory cutover date, I don't know that there is one other than at some point in time, if end of support would be kind of your date to cut over.
Or not be supported anymore.
Or not be supported anymore. Which, I mean, hey, I had some 4.11 clients that were out there for a long time past support.
I anticipate that happening for some of our customers that take a little longer to move, and it's not, not recommended, right? We want you to be on supported software. But if you're not on supported software, make sure you've got a good consultant that's been around long enough to know how to continue to support it, right? Right. Yeah, and thanks for putting the lifecycle link up there. Appreciate that.
All right. Well, we're pretty much at the bottom half of the hour. So Kim, thanks very much for your time today and all of the great information. For those of you that are on the line, if you've got any additional questions, please put them in the chat or reach out to us. And make sure to join us again in another month when we get into some of the details on the licensing behind MAS 8. Alex, back over to you.
Great. Amy and Kim, thank you so much for this overview. I know I had questions. I have more questions, but I know some of those will be answered on May 4th for our licensing discussion.
That's right.
Thank you all so much. Have a great afternoon. We appreciate you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.